Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Life After of 2025. Pleased to say I'm joined today by an old school friend, Mrs. Sarah Denya. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
It's okay.
So, Sarah, you sort of reached out to me quite early after my first podcast, which I was quite surprised about. In fact, a lot of people reached out saying they'd like to come on, etc. Could I just quickly ask you what prompted you to do that?
I think obviously you talking about the situation that happened to you, and not that it's a similar situation at all. But I think like for me, it's there's so many emotions when you're dealing with a bereavement,
Yeah.
and I think because it's been a long time, but I think it's to help and support others, whether they are new into a rocky road of bereavement or are a couple of years in or are actually further along the line, because I think that the bereavement road is long and it will be with you forever, but it actually, there's so many twists and turns that nobody really talks about it ever, and you have to like master it yourself. And I think if I can help just one person, then I would be pleased with that. If I helped more than that, then that would be amazing. But you know, I think like it just it's something. It's a bit of a taboo subject, isn't it? That people don't like to talk about at
agreed.
all, and because I don't know if people know how to talk about it more than anything.
People don't like death. I mean, people often sort of, for me, things happen. And they're sort of, they go into sort of practical mode. Well, I'll go to the funeral and then we probably don't have to talk about it again. We'll get the practical stuff out of the way and then get on with our lives sort of thing. Whereas obviously, the people that are then left with the memories, the events happened, well, they're still in the moment and it's really tough. Do you want to tell me a bit of sort of backstory to what happened with yourself?
So way back in 1999, that makes me feel really old.
We live to tell our tales. That's all I'll say.
So in the 90s, so I was 16 at the time, and my cousins lived next door but one, and my cousin was going out with his mates, and me and my friend were like, can we come along? Can we come on, take us out.
Those annoying teenagers.
And so they were a few years, 4 years older than us, and my cousin was like, all right, you can come along, but don't hit on any of my friends.
Walk 10 steps behind and don't pretend you know us.
But he was like, don't hit on any of my friends. I was like, I'm 16, like, well, I'm not going to do that.
You were always quite shy at school as well, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
And I wasn't that type of person, but I was like, take us out, take us drinking. So we bloody went to the 3 Tons in town, what was then. And me and my friend Claire, who was at school with us as well.
Which Claire?
Claire Brown, she was there.
I remember.
I'm still really good friends with her now.
I remember Claire.
So we went out, and I can't remember how many of them there was. I'd like to say 4, and there was us 2, but there might have been more and stuff. But anyway, there was my cousin, a couple of friends, and then Jamie as well. So we kind of like just were chatting, and obviously I knew him from being at my cousin's house and seeing them, and my younger cousin, who wasn't obviously out because they were too young, she used to say to me that she liked Jamie. She was a lot younger at the time, so she was like, don't get talking to Jamie, and I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, we hit it off really well, and then at the end of the night we got a taxi back together, and obviously exchanged numbers. The phones were like bricks, that sort, like you think we had to write it down on paper, still, but and then I guess and that was at the beginning of August, maybe the end of July, beginning of August, and then we kind of just we hit it off, and then that was it. There was no faffing around like teenagers do now. You were started seeing each other, and that's it. Our relationship kind of grew and blossomed then. And
Facebook, would it have been MySpace official? I can't even remember what was
then.
about
I don't even think I really did
So
that,
she's-
yeah. So I was like, I'd finished school obviously in that summer, and then no, I wasn't even 16. I was 15 because
it's
we
getting
finished
worse.
school. I know, God.
Careful what you say now.
15.
Yeah.
But and then I turned 16 at the end
Okay,
of
yeah,
August.
we're all right now.
So
Yeah, go on.
we're safe. So then obviously he had a job. He was 20. He was, how old was he at the 50? Hold on, I've got to work this out. He was 19 at the time, and then I turned 16, and he would have been 18, and then 19, and then so we were together then. I obviously went to college after school and studied art and design, and he was training to be an electrician. So he worked for a company in Amington, up by, you know, where the little Tesco is. I can't remember, TL something. It was
Oliver Exel's dad's company.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember it. By the old Liberal House.
Yeah, literally
TLO.
opposite TLO. Yeah. So he worked
Grew up
for
round the
them,
corner, yeah.
and then was doing his apprenticeship for them. So and then we the following. So that was 1998. So we obviously went into 1999. He came on holiday with me and my parents and friends.
Things went quite fast.
Oh yeah, and you know, we got on really well, and he was a really nice lad. You know, nobody ever had a bad word to say about him, and his family were really lovely.
But the kind your parents took to by the sound of it, and that's always a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think like as an only child as well, like my dad was very protective.
Yeah.
And was well, I remember actually when he first came round to our house, my auntie and uncle were there. The auntie and uncle that are not an auntie and uncle, but they are auntie and uncle. You know, the ones that we all have. And he was coming down the pathway, and my dad and my uncle were sat outside with their arms like that, like wiggling, and I was like, oh my God, please don't do that, like you're so embarrassing.
Like a couple of lion statues either side of the door.
Yeah. And I mean, he came down, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but
I bet he was bricking it.
Yeah, absolutely. But my dad like loved him, and so did my parent, so did my mum, and I got on really well with his family. So he, his mum and dad, and then he had an older sister and a sister that was in our year at school, but she was one of the older ones in our year. So and I got on really well with them as well. So you know, it was just we just got on great, and it obviously went as it does. And then obviously I was going to college, and then I was talking about going to university and going. Look, I was looking at Southampton, like, could I get any further away? But not because I didn't want to be around here. Like, I just wanted to, you know, but then obviously that put a little bit of pressure on, like, what was going to happen and stuff, and, you know, being away. And obviously he had secure placement in what he was doing with his electrician work, and he was great at his job. So, you know, so we'd had a couple of arguments about what was going to happen and stuff, but I think it was
it like your first sort of serious arguments where you thought this could go one way or another?
I don't know if they were that serious, but it was like
it's a massive decision.
It's a massive decision, and obviously we'd been together over 12 months then, and
it's a long time for that age, isn't it?
It really is. I think, like, you know, not many teenagers really stay together with.
Well, you're still exploring things at the end, like you say. You've just started going out drinking, and you know, Christ, I don't think I could get served till I was about 21, but it was always easier for girls, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think we could make ourselves look a bit older as well. And like, I look back on the pictures of us going out, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell, Mum? Why did you let me go out looking like that? But
so was you quite sort of quickly sort of thinking, well, although I've got all these, if you like, new experiences open to me, I want the relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, he was my first love as well, and you know, the first proper relationship, long-term relationship. So I also felt like I didn't really know what to do, but I wanted to go and experience university, and I'd been offered a place at Southampton University as well. I got offered a place. So it was a bit of turmoil about what I wanted to do, and also like
What were people around you saying? Were you getting advice?
My parents were a bit like, you do what you want to do. You make what
Okay.
you make it. My mum and dad have always been like that. They've never made decisions for me. They've
Stuck
always
by it.
said, we will support you no matter what. If it works or if it doesn't, you know, we're always there. So
Which then puts added pressure on you again,
of course
doesn't
it
it?
does, yeah, because I don't like making decisions.
Nah, who does? Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I think I was kind of adamant that I wanted to go and do that, but I wanted to think about how that relationship could
How's it gonna
work,
work?
a long distance. So, but it was still like, obviously I was in the second year of college, so it was still like 9 or 10 months away. Obviously I had to make that decision because they offer you the place, but it was still a longer period of time away. But obviously we had to talk about it because
It's a mature conversation to have at that stage of life, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
What next? I mean, did you go? Did you
no.
go to uni? So you stayed.
Well,
You went
I
for the
didn't go.
relationship.
No. So I was still in the second year of college when
Right.
Jamie died. So
Ah.
so I didn't then go to Southampton University because I then didn't want to be away from,
Can I ask you something?
yeah.
When Jamie passed, had you made the decision you weren't going to go?
Not at that point, no. It was still like, am I going, aren't I going? So, and then
Crazy.
when that situation happened, I knew instantly that I didn't want to go, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to be away from his parents and his family because I felt like it made me feel closer to him.
Of course.
Even though that sounds really bizarre because he wasn't here anymore, but I think because they were the people that knew him best.
I get it. Get it.
So, like, after he died, I guess I treated my mum and dad's house even more like a hotel than I'd already done because I didn't want to be there and because it happened at our home.
Yeah.
And so what happened was his parents were moving house and the house that they wanted to buy fell through. So his parents and sister, who was our age, moved in with his nan, and there wasn't enough room. So my mum and dad had spoke to his mum and dad and said, look, he can stay at ours. We've got a room. Obviously, they're still quite young, so we'd prefer them to be in separate rooms. And obviously, you respect your parents, so we did.
Yeah,
And his older sister had got a partner, and his older sister was pregnant at the time.
Okay.
So, heavily pregnant. She had her baby the day after Jamie died. Which was like turmoil for everybody, but you know, that's another story and could be here forever. But so that's why he was at ours, because he moved in because they were waiting to move house. So the bedroom that he was staying in was at the top of the stairs. So that was the room that I always saw as I went upstairs, and I didn't want to go up there, like, because that image was still in my mind.
Sorry, how long had he been staying there?
I can't remember. Probably. So it was in the end of November that he died, and I would probably say a good couple of months. So, it might have been in the summer. I can't really remember that time frame, but
because you said to me earlier, and it freaked me out. When I reached out to you the other day, it was his birthday.
Yeah. So when you messaged me last week, it was his birthday, which I was like, I am meant to be doing this, like talking to you about this, and I feel like I'm a massive believer in things happen for a reason. And I don't know what that reason that Jamie died, and whenever people lose somebody in an awful situation. But yeah, last week I was like, right.
And you apologised to me for coming back to me late.
Yeah, I know.
Now I know.
I did, yeah.
I'm thinking, fucking hell, you know,
Yeah.
Christ almighty. Okay, so there's lots of like little sort of bits that go with that. Then with the baby being born the day after, you know, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's like it's mad. It's
It is
fucking
mad,
mad.
and like when, not so much now as I've got older, but like in, not even in the years afterwards, because I was a bit of a mess for a very long time, and I had counselling for a really long time. But whenever I used to talk about the situation, or if I could talk about it, I almost felt like I was having a bit of an out of body experience, looking down on myself,
Yeah.
telling a story to people. And I'd be like, this is actually what's happened to us
Oh,
and
God,
the
yeah.
families, like my family and Jamie's family and everybody that knew him, like, because things like that don't happen in a small town. And back then, you know, it was 25 years ago. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'll be honest. Look, I mean, I've lived in town for my life, and it wasn't really out there. It
no.
did get kept really private, which I think is fantastic. Given the fact you're so young, I can see it's hard for you, but could you sort of talk to me about the day leading up?
Yeah. So, I think we'd had a bit of an argument about the university thing on that weekend before, and we'd gone out and we were having a chat, and everything was fine. But you know, when that thought, you know, we've been
And I
talking
say
about
something
this
that
and it's
if you'd have gone
looming.
crack on, you'd have known he probably didn't give a shit.
Yeah,
That's why I always
absolutely.
say about things like that. So yeah.
And we did love each other and care about each other a
Yeah.
lot. So, and you know, yeah. But so leading up to that, so the night before, so the Monday night, the Monday his sister went into labour,
Okay.
and so that night before he'd gone out, and I think it was that night or the couple of days before, he'd been doing some electrics at my mum and at our house, and he'd had a massive electric shock off the downstairs.
As every apprentice does, I
Yeah,
guess.
but afterwards people kept saying he died from that, and I was like, oh my god, like the stories that come out, yeah. And so, but that night before, like we had tea, we watched telly. My mum and dad had gone to bed, so we were sat downstairs chatting. He was dead excited because his sister had gone into labour, and obviously it was the first baby.
Gonna be an uncle.
He's going to be an uncle,
Yeah.
and you know, so he was really excited. And then we went to bed. I don't know what time, probably about 10, half 10. And I remember, like, he went into his bedroom and I went into mine, and then we came back on the landing, kissed each other goodnight and went to bed. And then, as normal, you know, my life was, we were happy, apart from those few odd talking about university and the niggly bits that you have in relationships and as a 16,
It's only the same as like, well, I'm going out this weekend. Well, no, you're not. I've got to staying with me and all that. It's the stuff that happens, isn't it? But as I say, it shows he really cared.
Yeah. So, and then like the next day on a Tuesday, I was not at college till later that morning. So, and then my mum comes into my room and wakes me up. So I'm annoyed that she's woke me up early. And I was like,
Girls don't like being woken up. I'm learning that in my house. It's a fucking nightmare.
do you know what? I'm an absolute morning person, but
Are you
clearly I
really?
wasn't on that day.
age, yeah.
So she came, my mum came in and was like, said, Jamie's alarm's going off and he's not...
And I imagine he'd have been up early for work most days.
he'd have been up and gone. He's not turning it off, and I don't want to go in case he's getting dressed or he's naked or whatever. And I was like, oh God, I'm on the day that I'm not going to college and I'm having to get up and like chuntering at my mum, all not knowing what was lying in the next few minutes. Like, crazy how your life can just change. That I'm annoyed about that, and then the next thing your whole world is turned upside down.
Can I ask you a question? Do you struggle opening doors?
I did.
It's these things, isn't it, that kind of, that was the moment, wasn't it? And that was how it occurred. And
I did, but the thing that I've struggled the most with is that when somebody's asleep.
Yeah.
And if I'm awake and I need to hear them breathing, and I still do it now. I do it with my husband, my own children, even my parents, if I've gone in and kissed them goodnight, and like with my mum living with us now, I'm like, I just need to hear that she's taking a breath. And that's the thing that's lived with me, I think, more than anything, is that I need to know that somebody's okay during the night, because he wasn't. So, yeah, so the door thing was a bit of an issue, but like I always kept the door of that room closed so I couldn't see in, and I never really went in there afterwards. So, but we moved house.
I was gonna say.
We moved house because I just couldn't be at that home, and we moved house like 12 months after we moved. I can't remember, I think it was just before his first anniversary, so we moved out of that house then.
So again, I'm picturing the scene. You've kind of walked in. Your mum's close by, I imagine.
She was behind, but she didn't follow me in because obviously she didn't want to.
Still with the...
Just in case he was getting dressed. Yeah. So, and I
Did you just
remember,
get quiet?
Well, I switched the light on, and my mum was like, "Don't switch the light on, you'll hurt his eyes." And I was like, "Oh, he'll be all right."
So it went from being really light-hearted to like pandemonium.
Yeah, and then he was asleep, what looked like asleep, as you would do. Yeah. And so, and I thought, still at that time, nothing was wrong. Not even that thought even entered my head at all.
Why would it?
Yeah, because you wouldn't expect that, would you? So, and I touched his arm because the quilt was under his arm and it was cold. And then I pulled the quilt back, and I don't know, obviously then my first initial thought was I looked to see if he was breathing. I didn't even check his pulse. I just looked to see if he was breathing. And I couldn't see him breathing, and I said to my mum, "There's something wrong." So she came in, and there was before he was staying with us, that room I used as a study, so there was a phone in that room, connected to the old dial-up internet and stuff, and so that was there, and I went to get his phone, but his phone wasn't there. So he'd left his phone in his car, which he never did. And I was like, why has he left his phone in the car? And I knew then when I said something's wrong that he was not alive. So my mum rang the ambulance, and I went to get his phone, but
Was your dad there?
My dad had just gone to work. So it was just me and my mum in the house. And I pulled on some clothes, the clothes that I wore the night before, and I still remember what those clothes were. And our old house, although the back garden led onto the drive that was behind, we always used to go round. So I went running round, and the milkman saw me, and I was obviously crying hysterically. And he said to me, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Clearly I wasn't, because I was crying hysterically. And I went to the car, and I rang his mum. And obviously, because his sister was in labour.
You've gone to get his phone?
I've gone to get his phone to call his mum.
Why did he leave his phone?
I don't know.
You're still asking yourself that, aren't you? I guess
I don't know why. He never ever did that. Never. So I was like, and as soon as I rang her, I was obviously outside on the drive at our house, and she said that she knew why I was calling her, and obviously I had to tell her on the phone that he wasn't alive, which was the hardest thing to tell someone. But
so she said to you, "I know why you're calling."
Not at that time.
But she said she had a feeling.
She's always said that she knew that he wouldn't live till he was old age. So she just had that hunch. So, and while I was on the phone to her, the ambulance came. So she obviously went so they could come.
Of course.
And I went running back round to the ambulance people, but we and the police had to come, obviously. as they do in these situations. And we were upstairs when the ambulance service were there, and I remember saying to them,
Did they
is he
try
alive?
and work on
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Is he
yeah,
alive? Is he breathing? Can you help him? And they couldn't. So
No.
they obviously told us, which makes the situation 10 times worse than it already is. And I remember like crying, and my dad was home at that point then. I don't really remember him coming home, but I know he was home because he was at the top of the stairs and he punched the wall.
Yep.
So he were, and I remember, my dad always holds his feelings close to his chest. So for me to see him do that, I was like, this shit is real.
Yeah,
like,
it's
this is really happening. But then we had to go downstairs while they took the body away. And then his mum and dad were there then, obviously, and my nan was there. And my nan was like really angry, saying, why has this happened? Like, I'm old age, like, why has this not happened to me? And why is somebody so young and got their life to lead? And you know, when you're listening to what everybody's saying, and I'm thinking,
Do you not think
is this really happening?
old people come out with the most honest shit when stuff like this happens?
Yeah.
And whether it be what you want to hear or not, they
Yeah.
just say it how it is.
Say it how it is.
But it makes sense, doesn't it? You can understand what she's saying.
Yeah, totally. And then we were like in the living room when they moved him down, and I was like, we'd got glass doors, and I remember I just wanted to see.
Were you still there when they took him out?
I wanted to see them taking it. I wanted to know that they were going to take care of him. Which sounds so bizarre, doesn't it? Like,
Not really. Not really, no.
but it just like, but then the police, I was questioned, obviously. I had to tell them everything about the night before. I had to tell them what we'd eaten, what we drank, if we'd had any sexual contact, like in front of his mum and dad and all the family. I was like,
it's horrible.
It's horrible. But I also had to ring my friends at college to tell them I wasn't going to be there. And I remember having that conversation, and I said to my friend, I'm not going to be in college today. And she was like, oh, why not? And I was like, told her. And she was like, I've got to go. And she was like, okay. And then she obviously told college then. But so then I don't really know what happened with the rest of that day, if I'm honest.
No, that's understandable.
And then Jamie's sister was obviously in labour, and she had Jamie's niece the next day, but the family didn't tell her that he died because of, obviously, they didn't want any complications happening. But then his family had to go and tell her then afterwards, which I can't imagine how they felt. But like, because he was so young, well, he was 20. It was the end of November, and he'd have been 21 the beginning of January. Obviously, he had to go to a post-mortem, and it was quite a while because they had to send parts of him away to be tested, and his parents had been asked if they wanted the funeral to be earlier, but they didn't want that. They wanted everything to be back and him to go out of the world as he came into the world, which I totally get that.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
So it was a bit of a longer time, but there was like, there was an inquest as well, as there are, but
Did you attend a room for that? Was it?
Yeah.
Of course it would have been
It was
Zoom, would it, or anything like that?
In Burton, which is actually the room where it was, is right next to the building that I teach in.
How quickly was the inquest?
I can't remember. It was after the Christmas, I think.
So within a few months?
Yeah, I think so. I don't. Time, like, afterwards, like, was
blurred
all over the place, and I like I said earlier, I wanted to be with his family more than I couldn't stand being around like my parents. And that sounds really awful because they did nothing wrong, but I just
Did you feel guilty?
guilty for not wanting to be with them, or
I mean, why is it you think you were magnetised to sort of his parents?
I just think it made me feel closer to him because he
Yeah.
wasn't there. And my mum and dad knew him for a lot shorter period.
So the loss
And that
for them
sounds
was
awful,
the loss
yeah.
for them was greater, wasn't it?
But then
Yeah.
also for my mum and dad, like I think they almost felt like they'd lost me because it ruined our relationship for a long time. But I don't know, ruin's not the right word, but we've always been a really close family. But I because I couldn't face the house, and I think the house move helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But I did some stupid things afterwards. Like, I know I said to you earlier, like 2 of my school friends were there for me through thick and thin, and it was before I drove. I had to take that many driving tests because my mind wasn't in
Yeah,
the
of
right
course,
place at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
But I went out one night, and I was so obviously afterwards I didn't go to college for a while, and I didn't go to like my Saturday job for a while.
Did you sort of go into a bit of a sort of, I don't know, like an extended rage?
Yeah, a little bit. But there was some people who took advantage and manipulated me. Not that I knew it at the time, and I went out drinking, drove a car, couldn't even drive. I hadn't passed my driving test, and I was drunk.
That's very unsarah-like.
I know. That's not something that I would ever have done.
No.
And if you'd have told me that I'd have done that, I'd have been like, no, I'd never have done that. But then that evening,
Do you think you stopped caring a little bit?
yeah, I didn't care about myself. I hated the world. I hated a lot of people
Scary.
in the world. I was very angry. And even, I remember my face hurt because I gritted my teeth a lot because I was so angry. And
Yeah.
anything people would say would really make me angry. Like, when people used to say to me, and I still don't really like this now, but people would say it, time's a great healer.
Bollocks.
I'd be like, don't do something that time's a great healer
Yeah.
because you don't know. And I think, like, I don't think time is a great healer. It's just not roaring in the moment anymore. Like,
I will say that it's how you start learning to cope.
yeah,
It doesn't get any easier. If you sit there and you think about it long enough, you're back there.
yeah, absolutely.
In the moment, you're feeling the same feelings, your stomach's feeling the same way, your head's feeling the same way, you're having the flag. It can be really, really traumatic. But when you see or you feel yourself going there, it's the coping of the triggers.
Yeah, and I think like now, like, I look at photos of him and I feel sad, but they don't make me cry. I smile at the memories that we had and
Yeah.
the photos and stuff, and that, thinking about where we were and what we were doing, and that horrendous situation has moulded me into the person that I am today. And I think I absolutely believe that I would have been a very different person, but there's a lot of me that would be the same as well. But I think, like, because I was 17 and it was 1999 and the new year was 2000 and everybody was celebrating the millennium, and then my next birthday was my 18th birthday, and all those things were like, I was a bit like, I don't want this. I don't want to be here. And I obviously tried to do something stupid, and my mum and dad were going through grieving for Jamie and then grieving for, I was trying to do things because I didn't want to be in this world. And remember I'd been taken to hospital, and I woke back up then on my mum and dad's living room floor, and Claire and Sue were there, and they were just there. They didn't ask questions. They didn't try and make me talk. They were just there. And I don't think I've ever really spoken to them about that whole situation. But from school, until now, they are always there. And I know, like, Claire lives in Wales and Sue, actually, I live closer to Sue now, but I know that if I rang either of them at any time of day or night, they would be there. And that's...
Do you feel like it's always as full on or as relaxed as it needs to be?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
That's amazing.
And those two people know me for what I was like before, what I was like at the time, and also what I'm like now, because they are three very different people. But I think, like, I was, I had counselling with St Giles Hospice for about 6 years.
Did you keep that up consistently?
Yeah, it was consistent for a long time, and then it went to, like, further apart, and then I got to a point where I was like, I don't need to go, but I don't feel the need to go. And I think, like, things had changed then, and I went to uni, but I stayed at Derby, but I travelled every day.
Yeah.
So, and I'd got a job that I wanted to be doing, and I think life changed a little bit, but it's still hurt, and still things, like, I didn't know if I was making the right decisions, because I almost feel like it was a bit of a sliding doors. Like, if that hadn't have happened, what would have happened? Would I have gone to Southampton?
God.
But this has happened, and now my life is going like that. Like,
Did you ever... So you're sort of early 20s, you've made some decisions and you're sort of getting through it, I guess is the only way I could put it. Did you ever, and this is sort of stuff that's crossed my mind before, did you ever have that temptation of just going somewhere where no one knows you?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, where nobody knows what's happened.
And they just treat you normal?
Just treat you normal, yeah. Because I always felt like people looked at me in pity, felt sorry for me. And I used to say to people, don't feel sorry for me.
Yeah, called like you're a warrior.
Yeah.
Right? Well, no, I'm not. I don't fucking want this. Yeah. This has just been.
Yeah, and I'd be like, I don't want you pitying you. Sorry, like, this has happened. Like, my life is carrying on, and although I didn't want it to at times, but though it has, and
where you are,
especially Tamworth, I think you said earlier.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy. But do you ever sort of, where you are now, think, has that really fucking happened to me? Because I do that all the time.
I do think that. And I think, like, has that happened? But also, if that hadn't have happened, like, Jamie's nan got me a job at the bottom house, so that's where I met my husband, and I wouldn't have my children that I've got now either. Yeah. So, like...
Why did you get with him? He's a terrible dancer. He fucking loved dancing when we was younger.
Oh, God, he still likes dancing, but it's hard to
couldn't get him off the fucking dance floor. I used to fancy myself as a bit of a mover, and there he is, like near like the in-betweeners, fucking everywhere.
Honestly.
But in all seriousness, he could move a bit, bless him.
But do you know, like, I'd obviously had a couple of relationships, and I couldn't hold them down, particularly if they were becoming a bit serious. I was like, nah, I got to get out of here. And my mum and dad were always like, you don't want to, and I'm like, I can't handle it, I can't. But I always felt like in previous relationships that those people knew of what happened with Jamie, and I almost felt like they were trying to fill his shoes, and I was like, you cannot do that. He is, you never forget your first love, regardless. But obviously what happened is
it's gonna be
even crazier.
Yeah.
But I think, like, Almo has never stopped me from talking about it, never stopped me from has never been judgmental of me or like anything like that. So, like, my kids know about what happened, obviously not the ins and outs, but no. And
2 boys?
I've got a girl and a boy.
Oh, a girl and a boy,
yeah. My little boy is the eldest. But so in the summer, last summer, they were like, can we take some flowers to Janie's grave? So we did that. So they came with me and to put flowers on his grave, and I've never really liked going there. I used to in the
don't go
first
to Sally's grave.
early days, but
Doesn't do it.
no.
The girls go, and they have people that take them. But any time I've been there, you just sort of stand there staring, and then then it gets really, really weird.
Yeah.
I find.
Yeah. So the kids wanted to. So we went to the shop and they picked some flowers, and we went up and put them.
How old are they?
They're 8 and 6.
Amazing.
I know. So, and I never, they know. So they always say, Mummy's boyfriend. That's how they talk about. Mummy's boyfriend, and we laugh about it because it sounds like I've got a boyfriend on the side. And
I wouldn't blame you with his fucking dancing.
But there was a time when Jackson, my eldest, he's a bit of a deep thinker. He likes to know the ins and outs. He's a little bit old before his, like an 8-year-old. Oh yeah. So he was talking about it, and I'm about to say to him, "Look, mate, like, Mummy doesn't want to talk about it all the time. Like, you gotta just, it's not something that you want to talk about." And I think because I lost my dad, and the kids were really close to my dad, so they have experienced the loss of somebody. I think he needed to talk to me about it. So
he was almost trying to sort of put himself where you were and think, God, what did Mummy go through
in
that time?
Situation? And like my dad to Jackson was like his idol, so he's really struggled. So I think like if he can talk to me about those things, it makes things clearer. So like, but for me, I know. And my loss with Jamie is very different to my loss with my dad, but also Jackson's loss with my dad. Like, I don't know how to deal with your loss, like, because I would never, I think for me, in the whole situation, when people used to say to me, "I know how you feel," I'd be like, "No, you don't. You really don't." Yeah, and I would never ever say that to somebody, because if
you're sort of like, and then you
partner,
can't get away quick enough, can you?
But your relationship, like, if I lost a boyfriend and maybe somebody else lost a boyfriend, but our relationships are very different, so you can't compare them. And you can understand the loss of someone, but you can't understand how they're ever feeling. And I think that was a thing that used to, still does it now, even like with me losing my dad. Like when people say, I understand, and I'll be like, no, you don't. But like, Jamie's parents came to my dad's funeral, and his sister, because and they like.
And how old's the child?
25.
And
then obviously they've gone on to have more children, and the other sister has as well. So, and he's very much talked about in their family. But they, like, at my dad's funeral said, like, we would never not be here to pay our respect because you were there when everything happened and you looked after Jamie. So, and I thought that was really quite nice. But I think it also brought a lot of emotions back, because the loss, and they were there because they were sad about my dad. But I think like the whole, like, I think I felt like most normal 17-year-olds were going out drinking with their friends, having fun, going on girls' lads' holidays, and that totally was wiped out. And I don't resent that at all, because I've obviously done things and afterwards and gone on holidays and stuff. But I think because my world was turned upside down at such a young age, an age where you're making decisions and stuff, I was like, oh my God, what is my life actually going to be? Like, I couldn't think past like what we were doing, and like I said earlier, I think like having my own children, all my mum and dad were doing was trying to protect me.
Of course.
But at the time, I didn't think that, and I wrote them a letter to apologise for how I treated them. And like, my dad cried, and like I said, my dad didn't show emotion. He was very, he used to cry about my kids, because he'd say, like, my mum and dad tried for a long time to have me. They had IVF for 10 years, so
Okay.
didn't think they could have kids. So, and I always used to say, I'm not getting married and I'm not having kids. Obviously, after that, I was
Yeah.
like, never. And then I had children and got married. So my dad used to be like, you've just given me everything. And but
You turned him into a soppy
oh
sop.
God, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he just hugged me after that and said, we didn't realise you felt like this, that you thought that you'd like. And I was like, well, I think like I needed to tell you that I didn't actually blame you
Yeah.
ever, because it wasn't nobody's fault. But
No.
yeah, and like me, my mum and dad have always had a really good relationship, and like when my dad died, lots of people said to us, you were so close as a family, I can't imagine how like you're feeling. And so I think like it's brought back a lot of emotions, because it's just that loss of somebody that you love so much. I think that but I was 17 then, and I'm 27 now. And with a few extra wrinkles.
Oh, God.
Of course, the years go, you can start counting backwards,
Do you know,
don't you?
that's, oh God, yeah. Do you know, like, I always find, well, I find now that I'm quite matter of fact about death if it's when it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And I know that sounds really crazy, but, you know, if you like, the circle of life has happened how it's typically supposed to, the grandchildren have come along, the grandparents have met the grandchildren and whatnot, I'm kind of all right with that. I don't feel as sort of like,
Yeah.
whereas I did before,
Yeah.
you know, is that same
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, I'm
when
a
you
bit
feel like
like
someone's
that.
had a good life, as they
Yeah.
say, or, you know, an innings, or...
Yeah, like, you know, we lost my nan, and my nan was in her 80s, and we knew that when she died, like, she wanted to, but we used to say, but she, you know, it's sad, but
Yeah.
she's had a good life.
Yeah, she's
And
done what
had-
she needed to do,
she-
sort of
yeah,
thing.
she's had a good life, and it doesn't stop you from being sad and upset about that person that you lose. I think like when you hear of somebody dying when they're younger, or something tragic has happened, like you're a bit like, why does life do that to people? Like
It makes you
can
question
ruin-
faith.
Yeah.
I think. Have you ever really gone any deeper with his mum's view of him not ever being or living to an older age? 'Cause
No,
that's
not really.
a deep
Yeah.
thought, isn't it?
Yeah, not really. No. She just said she just had that.
It's hard to
hunch.
ask, isn't it? But
she
it's
had
just a
that
crazy
hunch
thing to
that-
say, isn't it?
That was she didn't ever think that. She kind of like knew, and when she knew it was me on the phone, excuse me, she just knew that I was going to be telling her bad news, which on the day that she should have been having great news that her first grandchild was going to be born. So, but yeah, it just like things were hard afterwards. So I think like there was lots of stories going round that he'd been taking drugs.
And it's hard not to react.
And I
It's
felt that
really
really
hard
hard.
not to react.
Like I used to say to my mum, I just want to stand on a pedestal and tell people why, you know, why do people have to make up stories when he was not that type of person? Or like, I became really good friends with Jamie's best friend, James, who he really struggled
Yeah.
with it, and he's no longer with us now either. But like we became quite close friends for a bit, but then your life like moves on, doesn't it, and stuff. But they were you know, I think it's finding that comfort in people that you think that are gonna
Well, I was going to ask,
help you.
finally,
Yeah.
other than his dance moves, was it work with Alma? Because listen, I think, you know, I know him, football, that kind
Yeah,
of stuff,
yeah.
but he must be an amazing person to have sort of, it sounds like he's sort of, like you say, he's been the one that hasn't tried to fill that void
Yeah.
and accept that you had a first love.
This
and all-
is me.
This is you, yeah.
Baggage and all.
And it's got to have been hard for him as well.
I think he is. He's always taken life with a bit of a pinch of salt. He's always been.
Oh, he's
he
a
makes
clown.
people. He's a clown.
He's a
right?
clown, yeah.
And I always used to say to my mum that he made me laugh, and I almost felt like it.
Did he make you drop the guard a bit?
Back to what I was like before, because I had very much that on. I would never let anybody in. I was very closed, and I would never. Even now, I don't
Yeah.
like expressing my emotions much. Like if I get upset with my mum, sometimes I hold it in because I don't want to upset my mum, and that's what I was like I was saying, I was angry, gritting my teeth. That guard came up and I was very much.
You were always quite soft at school, if I remember rightly, but you're quite scary now. I was, or is that the teacher? Is that the teacher in your? I don't know.
I don't think
I feel like you're going to call me William in a minute, but no. On a serious note, it's a.
I think he softened
yeah.
softened me and almost brought back those years that I felt that I missed.
How long have you been together now?
So we've been together about.
You're supposed to know this, Sarah.
About 13 years, but we were on and off for a long time.
Okay.
So we were on and off for about 10 years before that, you see. So
okay.
So
You're only 27.
I'm yeah.
Only 27,
the
mate.
maths
That's
don't
all
add
right.
up, does it?
Summer's a miss. Summer's a miss. Yeah.
But he and like lots of people say, why didn't you get together back then? And one, like, well, he was an idiot, but also,
Yeah.
and I would.
He's going to hate this.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been ready. He knows. We talk about it all the
Yeah,
time. But
yeah.
I think if we'd have got together, then we wouldn't be together now. And I
Yeah,
think
that
I
makes
wouldn't
sense.
have been ready for that because, like I said, in a relationship, if anything got serious, I then bolted out the back
go.
door. So, I think. So we were like, I was 30 then when we got together. I am now showing my age, but
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
but because we'd known each other a long time, I moved.
Was you able to kind of skip a few of the normal obstacles?
Oh, we didn't need to get to know each other.
Yeah,
We
but-
already knew each other. I knew his family, he knew
Like you,
mine.
stop being an idiot.
Yeah.
Let's give it a go.
Well, that's what it was like. I
Yeah,
gave him an
yeah,
ultimatum,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
see.
fair enough, yeah.
And I was like, we make it work now or it never works.
Yeah.
So we got together then. It was like the New Year's Eve. And then we got together and then I moved in and then we bought a house together. And I was then pregnant. We were doing the house, but we gutted it, and then I found out I was pregnant with Jackson. So Jackson was born about 3 years after we officially got together.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like some people say, well, that was soon, but I'm like, it was 10
No, they
years
don't know
before
the
that.
bit before,
so
yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then we've been married 4 years this August. So yeah, and as they say, that's the rest is history. But
Amazing.
yeah, and like I said, the kids know a nice story about what happened. That they don't obviously know the ins and outs. They just know that he passed away,
Me too.
and they just wanted to, like I said, put some flowers on and the grave, and I thought that was quite sweet.
They deal
that-
with it well, don't they?
Yeah, they do, absolutely
yeah.
do. But it's not a topic that we talk about all the time. It's
Yeah.
every now and again, or if we drive past that cemetery, they'll say, "Oh, that's where Jamie is," and I'm like, "Yeah, that it is." Give him a wave, and
Yeah, it's lovely.
it's the innocence, I think, and I think,
Absolutely.
oh God, you just wish you could protect that forever, don't you? But yeah, so and yeah,
So, what,
so
other than doing nights worth of parents' evenings, as you've had to do, in a good place now.
Yeah, I think so. I think I am still very closed about how I feel like, and I think obviously with losing my dad not long ago, and that was a very quick and sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's probably why it brought back a lot of things, and but I almost felt like I was a protector because then my dad
was gonna
wasn't
say
there,
that, yeah.
like protecting my mum, protecting my own children.
You can't feel sorry for yourself in those situations.
No,
'cause
and
you've got the
also
kids.
like protecting Almo as well, because Almo and my dad were really close, and it hit him hard. So, like, I then became
Go
like
into
my
leader
dad
mode.
was.
Leader mode.
So,
yeah.
but yeah, in an absolutely great place. But I just cry in the car sometimes when that emotion is there, and because I will cry in front of the kids because I think it's good for them to let out their emotion, but I also don't want them to think that Mommy's sad all the time, because I'm not sad all the time, because I know that my dad and Jamie wouldn't want us to be like that. So, you know, and life is what you make of it, isn't it? So, you know, my dad would absolutely kill me if I did anything stupid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's it.
But yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Amazing
you.
story. And you know, like I say, you've done amazing to come through it. And
I just
amazing
hope
to
that
come through it.
people can, like, life is thereafter, even though you might not
Agreed.
think of it at the time, and times are hard. Like, if you'd have asked me even 3 years after Jamie had died if I ever saw myself being married and having children, like I said, I would have absolutely said no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even the day I got married, my best friend was like, "Oh, here we are, Sarah Bird, the girl that said she'd never have children, and you've got 2 beauties there, and you're getting married." I said, "I've still got time to run yet." But obviously I didn't, so yeah.
Brilliant.
So
Sarah, thank you.
thank you. So
Well done. Absolutely fantastic.